Aruch, Or Chaim, Siman Nun Gimal, the halachot of Shaliach Tzibur, and Daf Peibet Amud Bet of regular prints of Mishna Berurah in Seif Bet Yud Bet, Maran writes, En memanin, Misha Koreh Alefin Ainin or Ainin Alefin. You cannot possibly appoint a Shaliach Tzibur that mixes up Aleph and Ayin and Aleph. He reads the Ayin like an Aleph and Aleph like an Ayin, and he doesn't end there. You know, it's a Chet and Chaf, Tet and Taf, and all of the other pronunciations that should be differentiated, and they are not differentiated. A Shaliach Tzibur must be proficient in all of those areas. The Mishna Berurah writes, Perush Havarat Ayin hu behozek. Ayin comes from, it's otiot geroniot, it comes from the throat, not from just here. Aleph is from here. You say versus ayin. Ayin is different. It's pronounced from a different place in a person's body and a person's mouth. It's considered one of the otiot geroniot, and therefore it's behozek ve'amok yoter me'avarat aleph. Vehu adin lemish koreh hetin hein. If you mix up het and hey, that's also not a proper thing. Hey is hey, het is he. No, so het and chaf is also included. Or shekoreh leshibolet sibolet. Sometimes sin and shin, some people are not, as part of having, not a full lisp, but sometimes it becomes hard for some people to say shin, to pronounce shin. They say it's se. So shibolet will become sibolet. Or kulam medabrim kach. If everybody speaks like that, that's a different story. If all of them don't pronounce shin properly, then mutar liyot shaliach tzibur, then you could become the shaliach tzibur in that community. Now, with Daod, the Magen Avraham brings this and says, Daod, same halacha is for somebody that cannot pronounce the words correctly. Let's imagine somebody has a problem speaking, speech problems, has never been dealt with, or it can't be dealt with, and they can't pronounce the words properly. Some people, Rahman al-Islam, they have after they have stroke, and they can't pronounce properly. Some people have surgeries in their area of their mouth, and it becomes very difficult for them to pronounce certain words or all words. That's also not a proper thing to bring him as a shaliach tzibur. Shaliach tzibur has to be able to pronounce things fluently, properly, and correctly. And so on. He brings a Yerushalmi here, which we're not going to get into. And he continues on Ot Lamed Chet in Mishna Berurah, or Ainin Alfin, Ain Pri Hadash. Take a look at Pri Hadash. If you don't have someone that's as good as this shaliach tzibur, mutar lo lidor lateva afilu behetin hein. If you don't have anybody else, this is the best you've got. Then the Pri Hadash says you could still bring him as shaliach tzibur, but the Pnei Moshe on Yerushalmi disagrees with this very strongly. That even according to Pri Hadash, he says you cannot appoint this person as shaliach tzibur kavua of the shul, as a set shaliach tzibur, because maybe tomorrow you'll find somebody else. Every day, today is your best one, you call him up. Tomorrow you get a better one. Hopefully, you'll appoint the better one. Says the Mishna Berurah. רק לפעם זה מותר להורידו בדלקה ראוי כמותו כאיים מעשד רבי חייא שם בגמרא. There's a precedent to this in Gemara in Masechet Ba'al Metzia daf Peh Amud Bet. on page 85, there says that there was a place that they they had no other choice but this person that would mispronounce different letters, and Rabbi Haya let him be the Shaliach Tzibur. But it's a one-time type of thing. So this is Mishna Berurah, same thing as that. Perei Moshe and Yerushalmi says that one time you want to appoint somebody, fine. More than that is going to become a problem. Now, how about the Ashkenazi and Sephardi Havarot? Now, here's the Shulchan Aruch. The Ashkenazim, they do not pronounce Aleph and Ayin differently. They don't pronounce Chet and Haf, Het and Haf differently. They don't pronounce Tet and Taf differently. They all sound the same. Het and Chaf, they both pronounce it as Chet. Ayin and...
Is there a difference?
Yeah, Het is He, and Chaf comes from here. He comes from Garon. It's completely different. Tet, that's something that less people know. Tet is Tet. Tet? No, it's not. Which one? At is the with the top Tet, and Ayat is the other one. One of them is Tet, which is from your tongue and teeth together like this. The other one is Tay, which is, again, this is much less known than the other ones. Now you get into the details of Dalet Refuya being like something between Dalet and Zayin, and gets into, again, Resh really should be something also which the Ben Ish Chai says we have lost already, that Mesorav, Resh Refuya versus Resh Tikusha. But there is this concept. Nobody disagrees that there is this concept. So says a very interesting tshuva from Rav Henkin, Rabbi Yosef Eliyahu Henkin. He writes in his tshuvot that every Ashkenazi cheder, Rav Henkin was considered the Gadol Ador. Rav Moshe Feinstein would go get a bracha from him every Erev Yom Kippur to show that he's the Gadol Apostim, he's got the Gadol Ador. He's a tremendous person, very humble. Is the Rav of Ezra Torah, and much is to be said about him. I have personal encounters that my Rabbi Heinemann and the others that I've been in touch with, they had with him, that is completely mind-boggling of the mastership and the command that he had in every aspect, in every area of Torah. So he writes in his Tshuvot Ivra Helek Bet, he says the Ashkenazi Chadarim and schools should hire Sephardi Melamedim to teach their students Sephardi Havara for a very simple heshbon, he says. The heshbon would be because there is a difference. Chazal said there is a difference between these things. We, the Ashkenazim, he writes, don't have a Mesorah. We have lost the Mesorah of the tradition of what the difference is. The Sfaradim, due to the fact that they've stayed in the countries and they didn't go to exile that much, and also the host culture has those letters and differentiations. The Arabic culture has that. The Arabic language shares up to 75% of the shorashim of the words, and therefore those letters, the difference between Tet and Tet, and Ayin and Aleph and Het and Chaf, all of them exist actually in Arabic. So therefore, there was no reason for them to forget it. For thousands of years, they've been keeping it. So he says, even if they're Mesorah, you want to say that's maybe not authentic. Maybe there is a difference between Temanim say it one way, the Syrians say it a different way, or Iraqis say it a different way. Still, no Mesorah, some Mesorah, you go after some Mesorah versus no Mesorah. And generally speaking, again, put the Temanim aside, the Iraqis, the Syrians, the Persians, they all say the same thing. The Middle Eastern countries, they all, and the Moroccans, for that fact, they all have pretty much the same Mesorah. Maybe very small differences. In Yaskil Avdi, Alav Shalom, Rabbi Ovadia Hadaya, he has a tshuva on the differences between the Sfaradim even. But nevertheless, it says no Mesorah versus some Mesorah, you go after some Mesorah, right? This was actually done by Hatam Sofer's Rebbe. Hatam Sofer's Rebbe was Rab Natan Adler. Adler is Nesher. They used to call him the Nesher HaGadol, right? The mighty eagle. He was he was the Gadol Ador of European Jewry, hands down. And he, 250 years ago, 200 years ago, he writes that he hired for himself a Sephardi Melamed to teach him the Sephardi Havara, and ever since after that, in his Bet Midrash, he would not allow anybody to be the Shaliach Tzibur. He was the Shaliach Tzibur for Arvit, Shaharit, Mincha every single day. The Rosh Hashiva was the Shaliach Tzibur because he felt that all the other Havarot are incorrect, and you're not, according to this Shulchan Aruch that we just learned, you're not allowed to appoint a Shaliach Tzibur that can't differentiate if you have someone that can. So he could because he learned it. And he did it. Now, of course, Hatam Sofer lived his life completely based on everything that Natan Adler did, but in this one, he didn't follow. For whatever reason, I have a feeling that it may have been because of Reform or Conservative. Hatam Sofer was the one that single-handedly took on the fight against the Reform, and many of his tshuvot are badves, and many of his talmidim, including Marav Shik and others, also took that fight on. Actually, one of my close friends' father, Rabbi Rabinovitz, he wrote an entire sefer called Safra V'Saifa about the milchama of Hatam Sofer against the Reform. So, because one of the big things of the Reform was Havara that they took on, it may have been because of this that Hatam Sofer dropped that, even though that his Rebbe did it. But nevertheless, Natan Adler did this, and he held that he should do it. And he's not alone. Within the Ashkenazim, there are many others. We mentioned already Reb Henkin was the Gadol Ador in America over here. We have also the Ridbaz. The Ridbaz was a tremendous Tamei Chacham and Posek. He was the Rav and Posek in Chicago here before he fled for his dear life to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. He was the one that took on all of the terefot issues. Many of the, back in the day in America, before you had OU and Starkey, we don't understand what the bracha it is that we have hashgachot. Before that, you had to rely on the butchers, and the butchers was a mafia. And it was very difficult to have, and he had massive problems with the butchers, and he would use his podium of having the largest shul to speak against the butchers. And the head of the butchers threatened him that he's going to kill him if he doesn't stop talking against them. And of course, he was not a pushover, right? And he spoke, and then he gave him the final thing. He said, if you speak one more time, I will kill you. And he made sure to be there next Shabbat to see what he says. And of course, he went up there, and after his drasha, he started speaking about the fact that all the butchers are mamash feeding terefot to people. We don't understand what a big problem it was. Even with the hashgacha that we have nowadays, there's so much that has to still be a siyata d'shmaya and so on. And the guy took a gun out on Shabbat morning in the middle of the shul, and he shot at the Ridbaz. He missed, Baruch Hashem, and he literally ran away, fled out of the shul, and he left America because of that, because he was, his life was under real danger. But imagine America back then, right? And he became the Chavruta actually with Rabbi Yosef Yedida Levi, a tremendous personality. So he in Shalot Ridbaz, I believe it's in Siman Chav Zayin, he also writes the same thing, that the Ashkenazim should adopt the Havara of the Sfaradim. And again, there's many more that they say the same thing. I found once the Rabbi Chiel Yaakov Weinberg in his Shalot Tshuvot, Tzvidei Esh, in Bet Siman Hey, he also writes the same thing. And many others. But on the other hand, you have many who don't agree with this necessarily. For instance, the Chazon Ish, the Yashiv, some of the Gedolei Poskim of the Ashkenaz, they say, look, everyone should follow their own Havara and Hanaka. But nevertheless, for someone that doesn't have a minhag prior, certainly Havara of the Sfaradim is the correct Havara, even based on many of the Ashkenazim. Now, those who say the Ashkenazim don't have to change necessarily, that's a topic for itself, but it is, at least should serve as a chizuk for the Sfaradim themselves to strengthen their minhag, and also to learn, if they don't know all of these things that we mentioned, they should try to learn it properly. I remember the old minhag when I was back in East, in Iran, they did all of these things, right? The only thing they didn't do was tet that I couldn't find. All the other ones, even Daled Refuya, they spoke like that. It was pashut, the ayin, the het, all those, they were simple facts of life. That's how you spoke. And it's something that has been missed. Also, kuf is not K, that's kaf. Kuf is ke, it's ke. Now, some say ke, some say ke, but it's the same thing. It's not ke, that's for sure. And that's something that has to be adapted and kept in our minhag as well. No one in Iran would say ke for kuf, right? So that those are things that have to be upheld in the minhag of the Middle Eastern countries, which have been maintaining the proper pronunciation and Havara for over 2,000 years. And again, it was blessing that they had the post-this culture have the same pronunciations in their language. So it was preserved without any heroic measures. But now you need kind of heroic measures. You have to teach yourself and your kids, not to adopt the new modern Ivrit, so to speak, and to keep the proper Havara and pronunciations intact. So tough and soft, again, it's not tough, it's not soft. It's something between, right? It's a tough refuya. So when you say te, when you put your tongue behind the upper teeth in a strong way, right? Now try to do the same thing in a loose way, and you'll hear a sound which is between te and se. Again, for them, for us, we both changed it, right? We both changed it. The Sfaradim, they changed it they rounded it up to the closest, what they felt was closest, and it's te. And the Ashkenazim rounded it up to the closest that they felt it was se. It was not, none of them is really correct. Yeah. Again, some of the Sfaradim, they have adopted this and they say it properly, but it's very rare to find the Mesorah within the Sfaradim. Or they should take smart lawyers and train them to do it properly and go up to be a Hazan with long sleeves, That's not the Shem. Okay, Rabotai, we'll continue this on the days to come.
Like, there's a page